So it's so great to be here with Sheryl Crow. You know, Clarence and I were talking about how we don't agree on television or movies, but we do agree on Sheryl Crow. So yeah, I'm going to toss it over to Clarence to start out with some of our questions we have about your documentary, Sheryl.
Great,
Sheryl,
thank you.
it's fantastic to meet you. I've been on the front row of 3 of your concerts here in North Carolina. I think you're coming here on Monday night at in Cary. So
Yes, we are. And we are so ready to start touring. We're actually starting Thursday night, and we're getting our summer tour going. So we're so ready and so excited. And we just all got over COVID. So we're good.
Good for you. So, you know, looking at this documentary, it made me wonder, what is it about this time in your life that made you so introspective that you wanted to pursue this project?
Well, it sort of pursued me, Showtime, and this wonderful dear friend for years and years, Van Toffler, who produces documentaries, but who was a part of the MTV VH1 family in my early days, came to my manager and said, you know, there's a story there that needs to be told about the person behind the music, and that, you know, 30 years of a woman in music business is a relatable story. And I was really hesitant. You know, I'm a pretty private person, and but you know, when I reflect on how many documentaries I've watched that have really inspired me to want to keep doing what I'm doing, from Nina Simone to even the Bangles. I mean, there's so many stories that you don't know about the people who are behind the whole celebrity persona and who are behind a body of work. And I did feel like if I was going to make a documentary about my life, that it needed to be about my life and not so much all about the awards and all the glamorous stuff, but what really goes into inspiring a body of work that's, you know, 35, 40 years old.
Right. I do want to say one quick thing before I hand it off to Megan for her question. You know, I know you don't like to read things that are written about you. I know you don't like to read reviews, but there was a positive review of this documentary, and I'll quote from it. Sheryl Crow is a great storyteller because she's an ace psychologist of her own mishaps, which I think is
Wow.
pretty interesting. It's quite nice, I think. Hopefully you take it that way. Do you feel that because you're an artist who often writes about yourself within your songs, a lot of your songs are autobiographical, do you think that makes you particularly prone to that introspection?
You know, I think I think when you I wouldn't say judge, but if you were to decide who I was as a person based on all I want to do and Winding Road, and if it makes you happy, and Soak Up the Sun, those very sort of upbeat pop songs, you might think I'm something other than I am. And I was a fully formed person before I ever made it. I mean, I was 29 years old when my first record came out. I had been a school teacher. I had worked lots of different jobs, and you know, the fame thing was the part of it that wasn't what I was aspiring to be. What I was aspiring to be was an artist that would inspire other people, like the artists that came before me, the James Taylors, the Carole Kings, the Elton Johns, and but I think also the person that I came in as, even as a little kid, I knew I had a strong sense of melancholy, and that the only way to really, you know, find joy and peace in your life sometimes is to dig deep and kind of look in the dark places that are scary. And that's fodder for songwriting. I mean, whether you want to write about those things or not, your life definitely informs your art and your interest. And so you can tell I've dug deep. I've had some therapy. I wouldn't want to be my own psychiatrist, but yeah, I mean, I've really had to do some work to figure out how it all comes together and how to make life feel authentic.
I love the way the documentary starts out describing you as driven, and you say you don't get there by having a great time. I thought that's such an amazing quote, given how driven you are. Like early in your career, did you worry that maybe you'd be known for a song like All I Want to Do, which is about having a good time? Did
Yeah.
it feel slightly counterintuitive to who you are?
It did, but you know, the funny thing is when you write a song or when you're working on a song, you're coming at it from your, not only your life experience, but your sensibilities. And my sensibilities have always been a little bit of a sarcastic take. You know, songs like All I Want to Do have a real kind of sarcastic take on what was going on in the early 90s. I mean, we elected in this young president who basically was born of MTV as a rebellion to the old guard, which were the Bushes and the, you know, what we had known of our, of the structure of how we present ourselves in the world. I mean, even though that's a broad stroke, people were super apathetic in the song, in Los Angeles at least, and they showed up and they changed their future. And that was what was happening. And that's kind of what the song is based on, is some guy looking at the world through the window of a bar early in the morning with a hangover, you know, and what that looks like. And so people can make of a song how they experience it. You know, it can be upbeat and have a fun chorus and not really dig into the angle as much. And so, yeah, a lot of times people kind of miss the point, but nonetheless, that it's not my job to tell people how they're supposed to feel to a song. And that's kind of the glory and the beauty of songwriting, is that people will take it and make it their own.
Yeah, that's true. You formed such close-knit relationships, like with Scooter. I really loved seeing that. And do you think that comes from growing up in a small town?
I do, and I think it also comes from, you know, having grown up in a close-knit family and there being a sense of responsibility in that family. You know, you don't abandon a family member because they get on your nerves or because they disagree with you. You know, you look for the deeper, more meaningful relationship. And Scooter and I definitely have that. You know, we can be very yin and yang. But the one thing that I know of him is that he could not lie if his life depended on it, and he does not make decisions on my behalf based on his ambition. And I think that's really hard to find somebody to manage you and to actually represent you. If you're looking to be, you know, extremely famous and making side deals, but then you also want to be, you want to have integrity. The two don't really work hand in hand. I think that's why you see a lot of artists who change managements, you know, many times. There's always a feeling of, what's this guy doing and what's he trying to get out of this? And I never had that with Scooter, and we just have always had a good relationship where I knew I was serving good hands.
Sheryl, as you mentioned before, you're a very private person, and the times when you had interacted with public and with press, and a lot of that didn't go well. What is it like, though, when you're watching a documentary like this and you have friends and collaborators you know, opining on you and talking about you and praising you and talking about their experiences with you? What is that like for you to watch all of that?
Well, I have to say, I have cried a lot. It's a weird thing. I mean, even talking about it makes me extremely, and I know it's because I'm older now, you know, things really strike you in such a tender way, you know, and I definitely don't take for granted the relationships that I've been blessed with. I mean, it's incredible. And, you know, people like Laura Dern, who have known me, you know, in the euphoric moments, but certainly have known me in the really down and out moments, and me, her, you know. And I think no matter what line of work you're in, or whatever it is you're striving to be, the people that are there to pick you up when you're down, if they're there to celebrate you when you're also at your highest, I mean, that speaks volumes about you. And I've also been really lucky to have people that are younger than me inspire me to want to keep doing what I'm doing. I mean, inspire me in a way that's like, oh my gosh, I love this. I can't wait to sit down and write after having heard this song by Brandy, or after having heard this incredible song by Jason Isbell or whatever. I mean, that's what we do for each other. We inspire each other. You hope in your whole life you're going to have a Lennon McCartney thing, but you don't get that, but what you do get is you get moments of it where somebody inspires you to want to be great and to want to write something that matters. And so, yeah, I get very misty when I, even I had somebody call me the other day and tell me something that St. Vincent, that Annie had written, and it just broke me. I mean, it's very humbling, because I know how much my heroes meant to me. It's humbling to think that I might be somebody's hero. It matters.
We loved seeing all of those voices weigh in on you, particularly Trina Shoemaker, who is
oh my gosh,
fantastic.
Trina Shoemaker is amazing.
She's
watch a documentary about her too. I was going to say she's awesome.
There needs to be a documentary about Trina Shoemaker. And what people don't know about Trina Shoemaker is that she is absolutely, I don't know if she ever did any of the MIMSA or whatever those high IQ tests are, but she is absolutely brilliant. I mean, she reads books about physics, and I mean, that's what she lives for. I mean, she's just absolutely brilliant. And also she looks at life just a little bit. I mean, you can tell she's fascinating, but she also was, I mean, were it not for Trina Shoemaker, there would not be a Sheryl Crow. Absolutely, unequivocally.
So looking at this documentary, I have to ask, what was your relationship with Amy Scott, the director, and knowing how you are such a perfectionist and you love control. I mean, you don't love control, but you have control over your shows, and you are a strong woman with a voice who wants, things in a very specific way. How do you then give up that narrative of your life to a documentarian?
Well, it's been an interesting evolution for me. I think all the things that I felt like really worked in the early days, the work ethic and, making things feel important and have integrity, and my, practice ethic and my learning ethic and all these things that I felt like I could control. Once I got diagnosed with breast cancer, I looked at my life and thought, there is no controlling really anything. And as I've gotten older, really from that moment until now has been just a real exercise in letting go. And by the time I hired Amy, or we hired Amy, I felt like I had chosen the right person because of her sensibilities and because I loved what she did with the How documentary. And I felt like I'm in good hands, and I let go and relinquished any sort of control in it. And, I told her, I said, I'm going to not like the documentary because I won't enjoy seeing how old I am. I mean, that's just the vanity of being, I'm 60, right? I'm not going to look like I looked in the 30s or the 20s. And sometimes it's hard, especially now with this bar that we've set so high that everybody looks perfect with all the filters and getting your lips done and your implants and your, all of it. And knowing that I'm not going to do that, watching myself talk is not enjoyable. So I knew I was going to be up against that. But the other thing is knowing how much of it was on the cutting room floor. And there were things that I felt like, oh, I wish this was in it. I wish that was in it. I let go of all that because, honestly, it is about the story. And there are 7 or 8 other documentaries that could have been made. But I felt like what they chose to focus on ultimately has been the most important. They were right about, they went through vast amounts of archival footage, and they really dug deep. And what they landed on and how they put it together, I feel like is very authentic and honest, and I'm fine with it. In fact, not only am I fine with it, I think they did a beautiful job. But like I said, I don't watch it. So, I've watched it twice. And I enjoyed it more the second time. And I will watch it again because I'm going to make my kids watch it. And I'm sure they'll be bored silly, but
I think you look just as good today as you did in your 30s. I just want to say that
Oh my gosh, you were
yeah.
so sweet. Thank you.
When you look back at the early footage of Sheryl Crow starting out with Tuesday Night Music Club, what advice would you give her?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm afraid if I gave myself any advice, I might have changed what I did and I wouldn't be the person that I am. I mean, I do look back and I think, you know, one of the things I think about is when I was on the Jackson tour and we were traveling all over the world, and each one of us had a recording studio in our room. We all had 4 tracks and keyboards. And I spent an incredible amount of time not going out because I felt like I needed to work and write and get better. And even Scooter, who was on that tour, but not as my manager, was like, "Hey, you know, you gotta quit working so hard. You need to come out and, you know, hang out and stuff." And, you know, I think I probably would have had a little more fun. You know, I wouldn't have taken it all so seriously and worked so hard. But then, I don't know, would I be here? It's hard to know.
You would have missed Bubbles.
Yeah.
I might have missed Bubbles, and God knows I would not have wanted to miss that.
I can't even imagine. I
I
can't
can't
imagine.
either.
Well, Sheryl, I think those are all the questions that we have for you today. Thank you so much. You just don't even understand, like 25 years ago, I was obsessive with your music. Megan is too. This is such a complete honor for both of us.
Well, I appreciate that. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you guys taking the time to interview me. So
I wanted to be you. I wanted to be on the Lilith Fair tour, just like Brandy Carlisle. I loved that section of the doc too.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, I am so grateful that I got to be there for that. I mean, just that moment in time and how important that moment was. Yeah, I mean, you know, one thing I will say is that I've been really lucky that I got to come on the scene when I did, because it's so different now. You know, everything is so much more branded and so much more so much less organic. And so I do feel like I'm really lucky to have been around when I was.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.